So we're done with the news. Let's get into the topics here. The topic I wanted to roll out to you guys and talk about. So this actually comes off of, I was listening to the last Easy Allies podcast, Humor.
Nice.
And you guys were talking about, I think it was either Jones or Ian brought up the question of like, you know, No Man's Sky is the most disappointing game for the year, right? Mm-hmm. And then you brought up the counterpoint of like, whoa, let's wait to see Final Fantasy 15 and Last Guardian, which I was super surprised by, not because I don't believe that, because I do think those games will be disappointing. Last Guardian more so than Final Fantasy 15, but you seem like you're super excited for the games and you want to play those games. So I was actually surprised that you're the one that brought that up, you know.
Shout out to Mighty Number 9, by the way.
Mighty Number 9.
Yeah.
Just all the delays and how long those games have been in development hell, you know? It's just... I'm like, it's a defense mechanism to just prepare for disappointment with those games because we have been waiting so long. It's almost an impossibility for them to live up or exceed the hype, because the hype was at a maximum 7 years ago. So, and a lot of the hands-on that people have reported, that other allies have reported on, just has me concerned. You know, I remember Ben Moore did a behind closed doors demo of 15, and he came back just super upset. And then they had that terrible E3 showing with the Titan fight.
Yeah.
And then Last Guardian, similar thing. People have been playing it, and Daniel Bloodworth had played it, and you know, just a lukewarm reception.
Yep.
But the extra couple months for both is such a big deal, because I can remember The Last of Us, they said that game was a train wreck, like a month and a half before it came out.
Yeah.
And in a month and a half, you know, everything just ended up fitting nice and tight together, and the game is great. So I think the extra time and polish, hopefully, will make those games better. But again, you look at it like, what can 2 months do that 10 years hasn't, right?
Exactly.
So,
the counterpoint to that too of like the delays is like, it's the most disappointing game this year. We still don't know if those games are coming out this year. Hopefully they don't get delayed again. Hopefully, but you just never know.
So why would you say that?
I know. I'm sorry. We just really wanted to hear your opinion on this, because like we've talked about this ad nauseum too, of like Final Fantasy 15. So I've never played. I shouldn't say never played. I never finished a Final Fantasy game, right? And it's not for lack of trying. It's just that I hopped in really late, and it's kind of like Metal Gear in the sense of like there's so much going on that I'm afraid I'll be lost. More so Metal Gear, because it's Hideo Kojima and his games are crazy. But like with Final Fantasy, I never felt like I wanted to jump in, because I was afraid I was going to be like the uncool kid, right, getting into the party late.
Well, they're all standalone. That's the beauty of it. And same with Persona, Dominic, is that they're all relatively standalone.
Cool.
And you don't. That. Yeah, there's like one small Easter egg that connects 3 and 4, but really, like Final Fantasy specifically, aside from like, you know,
Sid,
creatures' names and whatnot, and like the names of magic spells, they're all in their own universes. So.
Yeah. The thing with Final Fantasy is like I kind of knew they were all separate stories, but it's like whenever you hear people talk about Final Fantasy, they always compare them, right? And I have, if I only play one game, I only have one game to compare. When people are like, "What, did you like 7 more? Or did you like 10 more?" Or, you know, all that whole discussion. I'm actually super excited for the remake of Final Fantasy 7 if they do it right, because everyone talks about that game being so great, and you know it's kind of hard to go back and play older games if you weren't in the zeitgeist at the time.
Totally.
So like, I'm really excited for the Final Fantasy VII remake if it ever comes out. You know, I love Kingdom Hearts as well. But like Final Fantasy 15, when they did the Square Enix event where they showed off, you know, Kingslave, and they showed off the anime, like the bro anime thing. I actually got, at that time we did a podcast and I was super excited. I was like, I think this is the Final Fantasy I'm going to hop into. And then slowly but surely they kept getting me more worried and more worried.
They pulled you away.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know, you know. Yeah. So I'm still, it's definitely not a day one purchase for me, but like it's still something I'm gonna look at. Like if it comes out and it's critically well received, then it will be the one that I hop into. But man, and then Last Guardian, the thing that bothers me about that game is you said like a lot of people are getting hands on. I've read some articles of people talking about like, it's kind of iffy. with Shadow of the Colossus, whether you think that game's like a tremendously great game or just a good game, like it's all about the spectacle in that game, right? And I think if this game, Last Guardian, is going to have some type of spectacle, maybe not in like scale, but somehow it's going to have some kind of spectacle with it. I want to see that. I don't know why they're not showing that off. All I've ever seen,
I think it's a respect the player's move.
I can see that.
I think the less you know about that game, the better.
Yeah, sure.
But it's also a double-edged sword because then you have to sell the game, you have to sell copies.
They haven't done that. Yeah.
And it seems like a very nuanced game. It feels like it's all about the boy's relationship with Trico, and that's something that's really hard to convey to an audience.
Well, so. I think to that point too, I think they know at this point they're not going to make huge numbers, so maybe they know that the only people that are going to buy that game are the people that are already invested in wanting that game, so why ruin it for them, I think maybe they're not trying to sell it to more people because they know that's not a possibility at this point. And if you just get into the hands of the people that already are anticipating loving it and they actually do love it, they'll sell more copies for you. So maybe that's the case too. Do you, Huber, do you think these games will get delayed again? No. I'm going to say no. I think this is it. You think this is it?
Yeah, I think this is it. I think they've had enough time. The fact that they've been playable now, that 15 has had demos, people have had hands-on with these games. I think it's coming. I think both of them are coming.
You can tell when they did this last delay, they pushed it as far as they possibly could without going out of 2016 because they're like, we can't push it into 2017.
Yeah. Out of the two, I think Last Guardian is less likely to get delayed. I don't think either of them will, but it seems like Final Fantasy, I could easily see them delaying it. Last Guardian, I think, is like, man, even if you need time to polish that game, just get that game out and then fix it with an update. Like, just get that game out, If there's something really wrong with it, just get it out and have a day one patch, Going back to the original point of this whole question, Huber, of like when Ian brought up, No Man's Sky being the most disappointing game, I called that way early on. I mean, it's not a hard thing to call. The hype was so crazy on that game. I really don't think there will be a game that has the high enough hype to the low enough low that No Man's Sky had. I don't think it's possible. Mighty Number 9.
Possible. It's so if Last Guardian comes out and is a train wreck, people will be devastated.
Sure.
Same with 15. Like people have been waiting so long for 15. It used to be called Final Fantasy Versus 13. Like people have been waiting so long, and like Last Guardian has a big following because of Eco and Shadow of the Colossus, but Final Fantasy is like a religious following for these games. Like people that love Final Fantasy love Final Fantasy. Yeah. So I think if Final Fantasy comes out and is a disappointment, people will be devastated. Because No Man's Sky, like people had no affiliation, no connection to the game, because it was the first of a series. Like people that have grown up with Final Fantasy, I can't even imagine Ben Moore getting his hands on that game and playing it and just it not being good. He'll lose sleep.
Well, the crazy thing too with Final Fantasy is like I think outside of Nintendo, any Nintendo IP and Call of Duty, it's one of the things that like even non-gamers know. Like I know a lot of people that aren't gamers that know Final Fantasy. They don't maybe know what happens in the game, but they know that that's a game. I think that's kind of crazy. Also, the CG movies too. I know people that have seen the movies that have never played a game, which is interesting. But I guess you're right. There is a chance for it to be as crazy, but I don't know. For me, like the No Man's Sky backlash online, a lot of it wasn't justified necessarily as crazy as people went, but like I really don't know if it would be that kind of a fervor online. I know people will be disappointed, but I think the call to action might not be as like there were so many people getting refunds for No Man's Sky. I don't know if it'll ever get to that point for Final Fantasy 15 or Last
It would
Guardian.
Just be more depression instead of rage.
Exactly. Exactly. I hope both those games are great. I hope they come out this year. It's insane to me that there's games that have been in development for half of my life. A little less than half. I'm 25 now, but like that, it's insane.
Final Fantasy is always fun when it comes out because it's like the one $200 million JRPG that we get. Persona and Tales are huge, but Final Fantasy is leagues above in terms of production budget.
Man, You know what? The franchise I want to catch on is Ni no Kuni. Like, that game looks so cool, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that really has a chance to blow up in the West just because of its art style. And if you want to bang for your buck, well, Ni no Kuni is only one game, but they have a second one in development. That game's, like, really long. And I think that, like, just the art style itself it plays very well to the Western crowd, especially younger audiences. And I think that's definitely, like, you know, kids' first JRPG kind of thing. Like, a lot of us...
Totally.
Yeah, a lot of us even had, like, Pokemon to start off with, and I think Ni no Kuni could easily be this next generation's Pokemon, you know? Not the same, obviously, but Ni no Kuni, I think... I'm surprised it wasn't shown off by Sony at all. I hope it has a pretty big presence at PSX, Ni no Kuni 2. Hopefully
I think it will.
Yeah, I hope so. I think that game really has a shot.
That reception at the last year's PSX was off the charts.
Exactly.
Are they doing Paris Games Week this year?
No.
Okay.
Neither them or Microsoft are doing that. They both didn't do Gamescom as well. Sony said that their only appearances, like major events, were going to be E3 and then PSX, and then that was before they announced, obviously, the PlayStation meeting.
Have they announced PSX yet this year?
No, so we don't even know if that's...
They said it's happening, though, right?
It's rumored to be in Los Angeles. The first year was Vegas. The second year was San Francisco.
Yeah.
So still kind of hush-hush on it.
Well, it's better for you guys then, right? If it's in LA, it's easier to cover.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah.
Then we can have, like, Easy Allies meetups.
Exactly. That's awesome. I think that's pretty much it. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask one question. So with Last Guardian or I guess it's not a question, but Last Guardian and Final Fantasy, I don't think I've heard anyone... there's been plenty of hands-on previews, plenty of people that have played it behind closed doors, and I don't think I've heard anyone that's like, yeah, this game's awesome. I can't wait to play it. Like, there's so many... Think about how many games there are like that. Like, you know, people talk about Gears of War that way, or Dishonored and stuff, and it's like, this game just does not have that hype at all. Like, I don't think... Clearly, there are probably going to be disappointments, but, like, I'm just surprised that no one, not even like a hardcore Final Fantasy fan or hardcore Shadow of the Colossus fan, is like, yeah, this game's awesome. I can't wait to play it. Like, nobody's saying that.
And the thing with that, though, is like, even if it's not in your forefront of your mind subconsciously, I think even Final Fantasy fans are like, we've waited 10 plus years for this game. This doesn't feel like it's gotten the most of those 10 plus years, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and we actually talked about this last week, Huber, and I wanted to have your take on this. My subject was The Last Guardian, whether it's good or not. It's going to be interesting to me if that game ends up being a game that was developed at a time. And what I mean by that is, if that game would have released when it was quote unquote intended to, if they're developing it for that time frame, you know, we haven't seen this company do anything since then, or development company. And I'm interested to see if this game is developed for a past generation of gamers, you know. I'm interested to see if this doesn't hold up to what we currently expect as a gamer in video games today. And that was my big question of, like, is Last Guardian a game that's developed out of its time, you know?
Absolutely. It feels like it, for sure.
Yeah.
Have you played it, Huber?
Which?
Last Guardian?
Oh, Last Guardian, no.
Okay.
Yeah. I was in the room watching Bloodworth play it at E3.
Okay.
Did it look janky? It sounds like people are saying it's a little janky.
Yeah, the way he moved around was kind of weird.
Yeah.
But it seems... Man, it's like horror, where, like, horror games, where it's just such a hard thing to sell, you know? Like, I say horror games because how do you pitch a horror game in the middle of the day with 100 people around?
Yeah.
You know? It's all about where you are, how you're playing it. And I think the same can be said about Final Fantasy, a game about emotions.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, it's super hard to judge The Last Guardian until I see that emotional through line, you know, and if that comes together, if I believe it, if I rally behind it. So.
Good luck to both of those teams.
Mm-hmm.
I think Last Guardian could have definitely benefited from like a Shadow release too. Like it's
oh my god, yes, just drop it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The point you brought up about how do you sell that game? How do you sell Journey? And Journey is regarded as one of like the best experiences ever for video games. How do you sell Journey to somebody? You really can't, you know. So I think yeah, it may handle janky and stuff like that, but maybe the game isn't about its movement necessarily. It's about the experience. It's about having your headphones on, being immersed in that world. So it's interesting to see how that plays out.